if you're just joining us, we typically hang out for the first 5 to 7 minutes and wait, of course, for our illustrious panelists to join us and everybody to wander in. We typically have music playing, which I'm trying to work on, but of course, like every electronic's not working. So in the meantime, you can feel free. Well, actually, there's only a couple of us up here, but as we get, oh wait, I see some more. As I get our speakers up here, you guys can feel free to chat. And as I said, we typically support with the music. So I'm adding you guys now. I do have some helpers that should come and they can help as well with bringing people up. So let's see. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work back on the music. You guys feel free to chat in just about 5 minutes. As people wander in, I will go ahead, set up the format, give us a little frame, set us up for some fun, and we will kick off. And I want to thank all of you for coming.
While we are waiting, if everybody also could share the room and maybe personally invite anybody that you may know that may be interested in information that we are going to speak about this evening, that would also be appreciated. Thank you. We'll be with you in just a couple minutes. And hello, everybody.
Evening. How is everybody tonight?
Doing good.
There we
Wonderful.
go. I was like, I'm not
Super
going to say
awesome.
anything if we don't get the energy. So welcome everybody to ISA's sponsored Twitter Spaces. We are here every Tuesday night from 5 to 6:30, exploring the topics that are impacting us most now and in the future. If you are not familiar with ISA, we are a customer-centric journey company, and we focus on data and insights that give brands and projects the information that they need from their consumers in order to drive and launch their strategy to help save money and make sure we're doing it all right. So if you have any questions about who your audience is, who you should be talking to, and what type of messaging, and aren't there yet, please feel free to reach out to anyone here at ISA. And we will help you identify whether there's an opportunity for us to help you or not. My name is Jacqueline, or you can just call me Jax, and I will be the moderator this evening. And I also have with me Craig and Garrett, and they will jump in and speak and join. If you are joining us, to start off, you may be wondering what a metaverse DJ, producer, songwriter, a cybersecurity expert, an operations leader, and a project founder possibly have in common that we could, pull this all together to talk about like-minded things. And if you are wondering, the reason is that as we enter into Web3 and we see the effects of blockchain and the technology in general, we know all of the areas that this technology is going to revolutionize and impact. And so today we have different views and perspectives, which is awesome, because I want to explore a little bit, around some of the educational aspects and even get you guys a chance to chat with each other. But really helping people to understand things about, like, why is this important? What are the impacts? What are the challenges and hurdles? What are the opportunities, right? Are there specific segments, industries, etc., that we think are going to be impacted? I want to hear from you guys. Are there any traditional brands you see as leaders? Are there any new projects that you see coming out that you think are going to help with this idea of mass adoption and onboarding? And really, what does opportunities in a downturn market provide for us, as opposed to focusing on the other side? So we can explore a couple of those topics, and I'm really excited that we have an opportunity to hear it from all different sides, right? And so I think we're going to have a great chat here. And I want to kick off with, this is what I want to do. Okay, can you guys each, so for those of you on the speaker panel, I want to hear kind of your 2-minute elevator speech about you as a person, right? How you got here, why you're here. Maybe tell us something fun about what you like to do. If you have a comment related to Prince or Let's Go Crazy, feel free to share that. And then tell us a little bit about like what you're working on in the space. Okay. So we'll kind of, we can either go, I can call on you, we can go round robin, or you can just jump in. 2 minutes about yourself, why you're here, why we should like you, and then what you're working on. Sound fair? Fabulous.
Let's
so
go.
would somebody like to jump in, or would you like me to call names?
Let me go ahead. I'll start it off.
Oh, look at you. And by the way, I'm very comfortable with silence. I would have just stayed. Thank you so much for jumping in.
No worries. No
Let's
worries.
hear biggest top. Like this is a like so we were talking right before you share about revolutionizing like all kinds of categories. And so, education is obviously huge. So I'm so pumped up. Let's hear it.
I know, like everything that you mentioned in the intro, that's like so much to unpack. We could go on for hours and hours. We could do this every week for the next, for the rest of the year and probably still have plenty of content to go on. But yeah, my name is Jesse Crawford. I'm one of the founders of WeNFT Metaversity. We talk about all of these cool subjects. We talk about a lot of cool projects. We give examples of things that we like to, do in the Web3 space or have done in the Web2 space, finance, whatever. But one of the things that became pretty apparent is there's a lot of people whom this is kind of onerous to. It's a little scary. They don't know much about it. They don't really want to put in the time. So we felt like educating people, like kind of bridging the gap between like the unknown to the known for the masses, to bring them over to this really cool technology that I'm sure everybody on this panel and everybody that's listening would agree that this is the revolutionary technology that we're kind of laying the groundwork for right now, right? So bringing in people, fostering ideas, doing those kind of things is important in the space. So Jesse Crawford, founder, WeNFT Metaversity. I kind of started out as I guess what you could call a legacy finance guy. I started out as a Forex trader. So living in Los Angeles, it's a terrible life, I could assure you. You start at 4 p.m. and you end at noon the next day. So it was, but
That's
I did
no
learn.
market closing around here in our new space, right? We don't get to go when the bell rings.
I know, right? It's terrible. And look, equities traders really kind of look down on Forex traders. That's how I met a business partner in a previous business. We were at a cocktail reception and we just kind of bumped into each other. He says, "Oh, well, what'd you do?" And I said, "I started out in my finance career as Forex." He's like, "Ugh, Forex trader? Really? I've got to go for wine. I'll see you later." He literally just snubbed me. He called me the next day and apologized. And he said I was perhaps a little harsh. But anyway, I kind of worked my way out of Forex trading and into private equity. Worked for a couple of different companies doing different things, one of them being real estate finance. Part of it was also the acquisitions as well. So I got heavily involved in construction. Went to a prop shop and did a lot of equities trading, managed the floor of a 1,000-person prop shop. So kind of, grew up in the traditional finance world. So when Bitcoin came out, I was very interested in it because everybody was kind of touting it as being the new money, right? The revolution to the old greenback, the legacy finance rails, the old slow, stodgy systems. So I got really, really interested in it, and I started trading Bitcoin. And then all of the systems, all of the trading platforms that were out at the time were really, really antiquated. So I set out on a mission to create software for trading and order matching, and embarked on that for a couple of years, building in very, very early stages of crypto, really. And then had the bright idea to morph that into a security token exchange, thinking we were going to tokenize every balance sheet in the United States. every balance sheet really in the world was going to go on the blockchain. So I had this big giant idea that I realized after we had built our systems and built out all this really, really cool software, like there's no real market for this. There's no real like,
by the way, I'm gonna tell your story as part of my learning because I love like you built the whole plan and then they're like there's not a market, and that also like helps me like validate my living because that's what I make sure you guys do first. You spend no money until you first know the answer to that question.
well, yeah, I mean,
story.
like we built this perfect mousetrap only to realize there was no mice. Like, wow, okay, wow, okay, sweet. So that's when I kind of refocused and kind of got back into smart contracts, and we actually built one of, if not the first, Bitcoin smart contract for escrow for Bitcoins, which was like I had no background in software whatsoever. So I hired a development team. I literally went heads down with the development team for 6 months, 9 months, and we created the first Bitcoin smart contract, and we did well with it. I mean, like there was a need at the time. There was big block trades that were happening. People try and do them face to face. They were happening all over the world. It became kind of unfeasible to do that. So we created a full escrow system with an escrow partner take on the fiat currency. And then we had the second part of that, which was the escrow for the Bitcoins. So we created a really, really cool system. But then, of course, with like all of the big block trades kind of evaporating and it becoming more retail, the proliferation of like Coinbase and a lot more people coming in and using different exchanges like FTX and perhaps even some other ones, offshore. The big block trades were kind of gone. So I kind of parlayed the smart contract experience that I had and started looking at NFTs and became an investor in different NFT projects, became pretty like active on Discord and a lot of different communities, and became pretty aware that everybody didn't really know anything about anything that they were putting their money into. Like had no metrics.
Oh my gosh, this is great. Keep telling the story. You are telling my story. I love this. I see ISA down there. This is a good case study of why people need to work with us. I hope you're listening. Sorry,
Yeah.
I just always I've been thinking about 100 things. Brent, good case study. Love it. Okay.
Well, like, so it was shocking to me, like you guys are like salivating for this mint to happen. Like you guys are like spending every waking moment, like trying to work for this whitelist just to mint this, stoned ape or whatever it is. Like if you guys put this much time and effort into just a stupid regular job at McDonald's, you'd make way more money than the value of this like NFT that you're trying to buy.
Don't discourage them. We want those people.
Well, clearly, right? But like, I mean, it was so funny to me because it's like you guys, I've tallied up all the time that you guys have spent trying to work for $100 NFT, and you guys have spent $3,687 worth of time at a $15 an hour job after taxes. It's like, wow. So anyway, but like they've spent so much time ready to give these people their money, and like they don't know anything about the project. They like the art. They think the art is cool. I'm not trying to bash any art projects. Please never let that, let that be inferred from anything I'm saying. But at the end of the day, they're basically just looking at the art, and yeah, somebody may have done a great job on the art, but like, who's the team? What are they doing with the money? Like, why are they raising money? What's the money for? What's it going to go into? Well, is this just a quick, like, hey, go on one of these sites that you can build 3D models, put out some NFTs of this, grab the money and run kind of rug pull? Does this have long-term viability? Like, what's the story with this deal? Right. So my co-founder and I, Austin, we decided that let's start a little AMA chat channel and kind of educate people. Let's get people kind of tuned up on this. Let's get people kind of like aware of what a rug pull looks like. Let's get people tuned up on the nomenclature of things. like I said staking in one of the Discord chats, and everybody's like, staking? What's that? Like, what are you going to do with that? How does that work? It's like, well, you put your NFT in their on their website, you stake it, you put it in there, and you get paid for it. I'm like, what? Like, yeah. Like, wow, that's amazing. Like, bro, that's what this whole project is all about. Like, why are you even here? So we set out on a mission to really educate people. We set out on a mission, and let me say this: the general populace has really, really great ideas. They just don't know really how to bring them to fruition either, right? Like they don't know anything about blockchain. They don't know anything about NFTs, but they may have this amazing idea that applied to an NFT project is like, it really works. So part of what we set out to do as well was to incubate, foster, accelerate ideas within our Metaversity, and of course, kind of prop up our students, right? Incubate and accelerate projects, bring kind of more foundational layers to what we're all trying to build. But then, like, as with any university or with any educational system, when you're done with your classes, when you get your diploma, when you get your degree, what do? They give you a pat on the back, they show you the door, they send you out into the world. We hear about all of these people with all of the student debt, right? Can't get a job. So we kind of set out a mission to tackle the other part of that, which is after you've gone through our courses, then you can choose to go over to our headhunters side and become part of our what we consider our like gold seal professionals, right? You're a professional in your respective area, whether it be marketing, community building, community management, or something even more high tech like smart contract building, UI UX design, or perhaps even consultation with the clients on tokenomics, other things that really impact the success of your project, but also give it that foundation so it can be a success. When people inquire about your project, you have the white paper, you have all of the technical aspects of what you have a docs team, you have a public facing profile, right?
Hi,
So,
Jesse. You definitely have a lot of great information to share with all of us, and we look forward to hearing more from you. But we'd also like to give a moment for the others to introduce themselves quickly. So I appreciate all the information, and obviously Jack's really related to some specific stories. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. Just yeah. So if someone else would like to go next, we'd appreciate it.
cool, man.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I want to have lots of conversation. And Jesse, I actually want to unpack your what you were just riffing on as it related to the education and things that folks don't know. And I'd love to have you work with me on a spaces that really drills down on that stuff, because I feel like, a year ago, year and a half ago, you could go lots of places, right, and learn all that beginner stuff, and people were really helpful. And now not anymore, right? People try to be helpful by saying things to new people like, do your own research. Okay, they've never heard of blockchain. They don't know what crypto is. Like, how the fuck are they supposed to know what to research, right? And how are
Right.
they supposed to understand, like, what is real and what isn't real? And this idea of, like, returning back to basic education beyond just terminology, I think is really important. And I think we should get it scheduled as part of the content calendar. If you're
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. I love it. So I'll relinquish the mic now and I'll pass it on. But
awesome. So yeah, let's hear about some of the other projects and connection here. And also, like, as speakers, you guys feel free at any time to chime in, ask other people questions, or riff. You're totally welcome. So I'll go on mute, and then let's hear from the pro.
Hey guys, Austin here. I am the other founder of the We NFT Metaversity. My name is Austin Rodas. Jesse kind of did a good job unpacking the macro view of what we do, but me personally, I come from my most recent business is in the cannabis space. And what kind of brought me over to this space was we started accepting Bitcoin on our e-commerce platform in 2016. My business partner at the time was really into these make believe coins on the internet, and I was like, "Hey, man, what's that all about?" And so I was trying to kind of figure that out, and really from there it's just kind of driven. I've always been really passionate about like disruption and integration. So really like the thought leadership of looking at something like crypto and tokenomics and NFTs and smart contracts and all these different things, and really like it was blowing my mind about the possible integrations of all of these different aspects of this industry, and trying to really like unzip everywhere that it could go, and just seeing this infinite potentiality of direction that these things could have on all of these different aspects of real estate and certifications and moving money and tokens and different things. So I've always been super interested in it, dabbled in it. And then, like Jesse said, we met in a project that we were both invested in, and we saw that there's all these people running around with blindfolds on, and that had no idea what was really happening in the space. And so there was an opportunity there for education and just trying to empower people to like make good decisions and like not burn their bank. I mean, these are people like sitting at home with kids and spending their milk money on NFTs that they have no idea really what it's about, like Jesse said. So there is the education aspect, and then also we integrated in the headhunting platform and also the kind of consulting side of things, of being able to identify market spaces and go to some of these relationships that we have with larger companies and Fortune 500 companies, and say, like, let's take a percentage of your marketing budget and put it towards Web3 stuff, because it's obviously going to be integrated in. So that's where I kind of stepped into the process, and we've been cranking this thing out for a little while now, and we're getting some good gas in the tank, and we're super pumped to be on here and integrate in with the community and provide some value, chat with you guys. Jacqueline, thanks for making it fun and playing some Prince. I've been on a lot of Twitter spaces that are extremely monotone people that are not really delivering information in a way that I think people are willing to receive it. So I think it's cool that we kind of have a little bit of space to have fun and like crack some jokes and play some music and talk about Prince. I don't have much information to give in that space, but yeah, it's super cool that you're kind of making it fun, and we're glad to be here. And let's chat it up and hang out for a little while.
Chatted. Yeah, I'm very excited to definitely follow up with you all. I think there's a lot of synergies, and I've been working with some other folks across the education space, so it would be really great to connect. I think we've got two more folks, so would love to hear from you guys, and then I really want to jump into some questions. What we typically do is we'll spend about 45 minutes, with our panel, asking some questions, getting to learn things. And then as we get into conversation, we will open it up. And for those of you that are down in the audience, you are welcome. We run what's called an open stage, meaning that you are welcome, one, to come up and join. Two, you are welcome to talk about yourself as well as anything you might be working on. We just ask that you keep it short. You may have comments or feedback with the speakers, and maybe you have a different perspective. We love to hear that. We just ask that everybody remain, respectful of each other. So I'll be excited for that portion. And for now, we'll keep hearing about our speakers and then dig in a little bit to what I think there'll be a lot of people wanting to question. And if I can, please ask everybody to go ahead and share the space. In addition to sharing it, maybe you could put a little note that says why you think they should come, and see if we can build up, because it looks like everybody's sleeping or something. I don't know where everybody is. So let's go ahead. Let's hear. How about from Grifter?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Well, my name is Grifter. I'm a music producer, DJ, bunch of other things. I got into the NFT space basically actually through Gary Vee, and I was just wondering what he was talking about, and once I got the full explanation and did my own research on it all, I just thought that the power of NFTs and Web3 could really change the position of artists in the music industry. So I started to dive in pretty heavily into it and saw that it gave artists such as myself more financial freedom, a way to connect with their audience a little bit better through wallets and tokenizing or basically gamifying our careers. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much the gist of it. And currently, I'm working on a project, generative music, and if you want to call it a it's PFP, but it's more of a generative art project with Async that's releasing next week. So I'm excited to bring that to the space.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Awesome. Definitely excited to explore a little bit more. Love your story of the entry. We'll be curious, like what sort of specifically like piqued your interest, and want to hear more about the project. Also, if you guys are speakers on our stage, please know it looks like we don't have anything pinned up at the top. But please know, as a speaker, you are able to pin anything to the top of the room. It doesn't need to be a tweet. So if you would like to share something about your project or just your space in general so that the folks here know how to find you, that would be great. Okay, I digress. You all back to the speakers.
And if you don't know how to do that, just let me know and I'll do it for you. As long as there's a tweet out there, I'll go to your page and do it while we're all talking. And I believe, and please forgive me if I get this name wrong, I believe it's Ilhan. It is, we'd love to hear from you.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm Ilhan, and nice to meet you all. It was really good speaking to the team. So my name is Ilhan, and basically the way I joined Web3 is also how I got into tech, which was last year around, I would say, March or April, where I was just out of curiosity. So to give you a little background, my whole life I just wanted to be a doctor. So here I was studying to be in medicine and, just doing my thing. And then I run into random places, whether it was Twitter or Clubhouse. And I always was listening to incredible people talk about ideas and what they were involved in. And I just could not believe it. And so that's how unlearning all started. It wasn't that I was hearing things for the first time or learning about them. It was more so, it was the perfect moment where I was receiving that information, but also I was able to unlearn preconceived notions that I had of these topics, whether it was cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, cybersecurity. And so through all of that, I did my own thing where I was like, hey, how about I hold conversations and we just learn together? Because people are more likely and more open to just learn and hear you out if it's just through conversation rather than teaching somebody anything, right? It's more fun to learn from other people. So that's where unlearning all started, and the account is listening in the audience. So it was super fun, and basically what unlearning is a movement and a community, and the whole premise is how do you create accessibility for all. So if you look at the Web3 space, for example, there isn't a lot of diversity per se or inclusivity. It kind of like I remember people would join my Twitter spaces and they're like, oh my god. For some reason they thought it would be like, they're like, there's no bro culture. I don't even know what that means, but I think some people feel more comfortable when they realize, oh, you're just like me. This is not something that's like a cult. Oh, you're normal. And then they're able to relax, right? So I don't think Web3 can really reach its full potential until we make it accessible and interesting for everyone. That means that women, minorities, and everybody else around the world as well, globally. So that's my whole premise. And I try to do that via anything interesting that I can do. So Twitter Spaces, I have a blog as well as a newsletter. And so for me, it's super fun just every week putting things together, whether it's resources and such. And the reason why I also talk about how to enter tech and or tech industry, for example, is that if you don't have the privilege to even working in a space where, for example, I work in cybersecurity, so I'm incredibly privileged. Versus if I was still in healthcare, I would say, "Hey, leave me alone. Web3 sounds great, but leave me alone. I got a life to figure out." But because I'm in cybersecurity, it's so relevant, right? I'm in smack in the middle of it, and I'm able to understand the technology and why security is important. I'm able to talk to and advise NFT projects on how they could be more secure. So it's all related. And I just kept running into this wall where people are like, well, I'm not in tech. I don't have context. They sometimes don't even have the privilege. Like I can completely afford to degen into, NFT projects, crypto, all this other stuff, but somebody might not have that privilege. So for me, I'm always trying to think about how do we create that accessibility. So it's been super fun just making sure that people know about these careers as well as all the opportunities that are available within Web3. So it's nice to meet all of you.
Thank you. I love it. I believe that we got through everyone. I have taken quite a bit of notes, and there was like some amazing sort of pullouts there. What I really liked, I hear a lot about like accessibility, right? Like onboarding, accessibility, ease of use. But I loved the way that you said accessible and interesting. And so I think sometimes in education, we focus so much on the accessibility and the education and the learning that there can be like we forget maybe the interesting part. So I loved the connection of those two things, like accessible and interesting. And that really is our responsibility, right, as leaders in the space. Is hey, we can teach you how to do this, and this is why, and this is what makes it interesting. So thank you for your perspective on that. For sure. So curious, like as we now know, we've got all of these different backgrounds. Like, what do you guys think? So, and one of the things I like to like remind everybody, right, is this is all driven by new technology, by blockchain technology. So, what do you think are some? And you guys touched on quite a few, but what do you think are some of the revolutions, if you will, coming in the space? And I'll blend the question together. What are opportunities out there, whether it's business opportunities, brand opportunities, consumer opportunities that weren't there before? And what are some of those unlocks, right, around adoption? And what do we think about that, when and where that'll happen? Does that make sense for everybody? Can everyone jive on that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think one of the biggest things is like the conceptually, I think where we're at in the stage of Web3 is mass adoption and corralling and recruiting people to be engaged in the industry, right? So like when you look at Web2, when the email came out, people were like, what the heck is this? Like, I don't, I don't know how to use this. I don't want to do this. And then you have the people that adopted it that are, in the .com era that made $1 billion and they knew everything about it, but they also had to dissect everything and deliver it in a way that was recruitable to mass adoption and to the general public. So I think one way that that's really happening is influencers. So you see like somebody mentioned Gary Vee. You have all these people that are influential within their own communities, and they start talking about Web3, and then it's like it's coming from an authoritative position, and people are like, oh, what is that? Let me look into that now because somebody that I look up to that's an authority and an influencer talked about it. And I think that that's one way that is really providing mass adoption and education to people. And I think that it's up to us, like everybody that's on this Twitter space is early, right? I mean, really, when it comes down to it, yeah, there's a lot of people in the space and even exponentially more than there were last year, but it's still very early. So understanding the impact that Web3 has on technology in general and how it transitions from Web2, now you have companies like Tiffany's and McDonald's and Pizza Hut and Kia and all of these companies that have launched NFT collections. So clearly, there's a large space for this mass adoption, and you have this trickle down effect of people being educated. And when the consumers and general public want something, then you have the companies that are providing that to them in some way, shape, or form. Like you can buy a digital piece of pie online from Pizza Hut, or you can buy a digital McRib from McDonald's, which is disgusting in real life. So I'm not sure why that's a good investment. But you have all of these things that that I think are really influential and impactful. And that's really where I think that, like, everybody that's on this Twitter Spaces, that's in the industry and seeing this, like, this inclusion and adoption is what's really exciting, because we have to dissect the thought leadership from a perspective of how does this impact the general population? How do they integrate, and how do we get them excited about learning to where it impacts them, and they want to, like, dive into this thing.
Yeah, I love that. I assume that we have some follow-up comments either as a build or add on there. So I'm going to quiet my mouth because I'm kind of sick of hearing myself. And I've heard nobody talk about Prince, which is disappointing.
I mentioned Prince, but only that I didn't talk about Prince.
But did he do an NFT collection? Can we get print? Can we stake for, Purple Rain? Like, what do we got here? Like,
I love it. I mean,
in.
if you want to talk about fandom, right, we all know that this technology, right, is enabling fandom in all different ways. There's some fandom there. And if those of you down in the audience as well, please feel free to raise your hand and come up if you would like to join in on the conversation. I'm going to go ahead on mute because I want to hear the build from our speakers.
I'm shocked there isn't a Purple Rain NFT project already.
Yeah, we got to get this together. Don't worry, I'll send him a note tonight.
no respect in the space. You know what I mean? Just no. Everyone's got all these traits, 3D glasses and stuff, but, nobody's wearing purple frill coats, Come on. POTUS, I don't know if that's
somebody in a hurricane or something? Is anybody? Is everyone?
Wow.
That was Purple Rain, baby. What are you talking about?
In full effect, wasn't it?
I found a soundboard down here. We're in for it tonight, guys.
No, it is interesting to think about, like, any kind of, old school, famous, vetted, people. I know, like, I've ran into a lot of interesting, what might be considered, like, old IP in this space for sure. But yeah, it doesn't seem to have really attracted the normal person or the, like, classic, fan. You know what I mean? There is still this little bit of a gap, right? But that's all why we're kind of here, right? Is so, like, especially a lot of you down here have begun education platforms and trying to spread that word and make that difference. What do you guys think might be, like, one key thing that would, like, allow normal, quote, outside people to just, like, get into the space in a more comfortable, easy way?
Ease of use.
Yeah.
Right. So Austin kind of touched on it, right? So technology always goes through adoption cycles, and it always starts out with something that, everybody's like, well, why would I use an email? I write letters. We put stamps on it. We send it in the mail, But can you imagine your life today without email?
Yep.
Like, when's the last time you actually wrote a letter? Like, funny thing, I actually got a letter.
I'm the only one left. I write letters, but I obviously use email a lot. But I do write handwritten letters, but I think that's like me and a dozen people.
I got a letter from my mother about a month ago, and I cherished it. I was like, holy shit, I got a letter, like an actual real letter. Amazing.
You indirectly saying I'm old because I told you what I do, and then you said your mother does it.
No, not at all. Not at all. I was actually going to segue into saying that I was old because I actually met Prince in person. True story.
Now, obviously, that's what we should be talking about. So can you just give us 30 seconds and then we'll have
30 seconds. Yes. I got invited to go to the Foundation Room in Los Angeles, spur of the moment. I was at another bar. A friend of mine invited me over. We got the very last table that was there. I was sitting there with a couple of my buddies. A couple of girls walked up and they said, hey, there's no place to sit. You guys have a gigantic table. You mind if we sit with you? I was like, sure, there's a guy with us. And I was like, sure, no problem. So they sat down and they ordered a bunch of drinks, and my buddy was getting all geeked up. He was sitting next to me and he's kind of, ribbing me. He's like, dude, what? He's like, you know who that is, right? And I looked over. I'm like, man, he looks really familiar. He's like, that's Prince, dude. So Prince actually sat at our table and bought us drinks all night long at the Foundation Room in Los Angeles.
that one is a great story. Two, since you have access to Prince, can we pitch this idea of NFT to him? My
Clearly,
mind
you're best
is
friends
always
now.
thinking of what's next.
Yeah, we didn't swap numbers or anything like that, unfortunately. So, and even if we did, it probably wouldn't do me much good now, unfortunately. So,
I wanted to ask a follow-up question, because as we talk about what's going to help, right? With mass adoption, and a lot of times we hear ease of use, right? So I'd like to understand from your perspective, what are the elements that go into ease of use, and whose responsibility is it within the ecosystem? I know my answer, but I'd love to hear all yours.
well, it's an amazing question, and I'll answer that with something that's kind of familiar to everybody, and it's something that everybody uses every day, but they have absolutely no idea. Nobody on this spaces right now can actually tell me the answer to the question I'm about to ask, which is, how does your credit card or your debit card work? Exactly, precisely. What are the foundational steps? How does it work? Right? Nobody really knows, and it works on a credit and debit system. Nobody really cares how it works, right? It just works. You swipe your card, you pay for your groceries, you pay for your latte, you do whatever it is, you pay for whatever it is that you pay for, because nobody really pays with cash anymore, right? So you're using your card everywhere, and the systems, the underlying.
Because a lot of times, if you're buying cannabis, you need cash.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I really am going on mute. Just
unless you need a hook, there's a couple of cannabis shops right by me that take debit cards, credit card, whatever you want. You come in with plastic, they got you. Whole different spaces though. But anyway, the foundational layers are what really make the ease of use, I think, really is what going to make it proliferate to the masses. And we're the ones that are here on the spaces, the ones that are kind of building in this down market, the ones that believe in what they're doing, that believe in the technology. We're the people that are building the foundational layers. So as the kind of answer to the question that I asked before, there's intermediaries that handle the transaction, right? A credit card processor handles the transaction. They debit your account. They query your account first. They debit your account. That money is put a hold. The bank has to then send the money. So it's an antiquated system, much like stocks, much like bonds, much like all of the legacy finance that there is. But everybody's used to the system and how it works. Well, blockchain is much quicker. It's much faster, and it literally eliminates a lot of the old legacy systems of how people do things now, right? So with a really fast blockchain, there's no need to have old legacy financial rails and credit card systems and credit card processors and credit and debit systems, because the transaction happens immediately right there on the blockchain, especially something like Solana, right? It's immediate. The debit happens immediately, the credit happens immediately. You walk away, you've got your receipt. So Solana is a good use case for point of sale. Okay. Ethereum is kind of the de facto smart contract chain. Bitcoin is kind of the gold of the whole, blockchain world. So everybody's still trying to figure out what all of this is. But we're now putting use cases and things that disrupt certain industries in place, and the foundational layers and the systems, the bridges, all of the things of how it really works. Those are starting to go in now. And to Austin made the point earlier that there's a lot of big companies that are coming into the space now, right? So I have this blog that comes to me that they show all of the different businesses that are getting into the metaverse and what they're doing. And it's grown from literally 1 to 2 to 5 to 15 to now 70, 100, it's on and on and on. And so it's really starting to grow with the big retailers. They're really starting to advertise it. People are starting to become more aware of it through traditional advertising. But now, when it becomes easy for people to use, when it becomes very much like your credit card or your debit card or the things that you use on a daily basis that you're used to, that's when the proliferation starts to happen. So everybody here is, kind of building their own little systems, their own ecosystem, their own real estate out in the Web3 space, but I think it's a foregone conclusion. We're going to kind of transfer over into the fourth industrial revolution Web3 space, where work happens completely differently. Your retail shopping experience happens completely differently. Your music listening experience may happen completely differently. Your music buying experience may happen completely differently. And, we're not very far away from that. We're mere years away from it. So, albeit, like say I'm old, I'm 50. So, I've seen a lot of technology changes. My daughter laughs at me because I have trouble sometimes with my virtual background or something. She's like, "Oh my God, you're so old." Like, I remember when a fax was high technology, right? So that's part of the ease of use, I think.
At some point, we may not even call an NFT an NFT. It's just going to be part of our life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's kind of how I ultimately see everything happening, because it's going to be the title to your house. It's going to be your stocks or your bonds certificate. It's going to be receipts for things. It's just going to be like, we haven't really kind of bridged that world yet. So.
Yeah, and I think this is true because we have to make sure that we don't really overcomplicate stuff. Like, I know how exciting everything is, and sometimes like people are like, "Oh, this is what this is going to do," but the average person probably will never really care or really look into it or even try to understand the mechanism or how it works. They're like, "Hey, this puts me in the middle of a community. Okay, I'm in. Oh, this gives me this utility. Okay, I'm in." But the technology behind it, I feel like we're all nerds, and that's good. But everyone else is probably going to be like, no, I can't relate.
It's like the old TOS, right? Like, nobody reads the terms of service. All the information is right there in front of you, what they're going to do with it, but nobody seems to care.
Yeah, and if you did read it, you'd never install the software that's about to be held not liable for your computer crashing and your house burning down and everything else, right?
Agreed.
So I invited a few folks up from the audience, and I'm not sure if the invites are or are not working. However, if you would like to speak, feel free to make a request, and we can bring you up. Lots of good stuff here to riff off of. I think we all here in the space can certainly identify, right, with these challenges and onboarding. And as a build, off of like overcomplicating, I really agree. Like, sometimes when people are like, "Well, tell me about it and tell me how it works." And because we're so steeped in what we do day in and day out, even when we think we're explaining something basically, we're not. And to the point of, when we switch the light switch, right? Like, we don't understand like the things that happen to make the lights go on. We just know it makes the lights go on. So part of education is helping people to understand like what the value is, how they can benefit from it, and then how they get involved, right? So I think that it's really like kind of a holistic opportunity here that we have.
Hey, Jax, how you doing tonight?
Brent, my Brent.
Hey, Brent.
Brent.
What up, Brent?
Good to see y'all. Thanks for having me out. Thanks for inviting me up for a second.
What do you think of Prince before you say anything?
I think he's one of the most diverse, talented, and prolific artists that the world has ever known in modern history.
Excellent. You may stay on stage. Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's body of work is enormous, and none of it sucks. So anyway, I guess that makes me a fan. I should probably listen to his music more often. It's been a while. Yeah, so speaking of great creators and the challenges of bringing the masses on the Web3 and the question of how do you make it a little bit, I guess, easier, user-friendly, more easy to adopt, I think the answer to that, in short, is the builders themselves, right? We need to look at the experience today from a non-Web3 person's perspective, put ourselves in their shoes, so to speak. Forget all we know about wallets and buying a token and bridges and transferring and minting and all the rest. And just think about how the average person, to the earlier speaker's comment, would just do this if it was buying a credit card and build the technology in those directions. I'm not saying that's inherently easy. There's federal regulations that potentially impact the ability and the pace in which these kind of UI and UX innovations can actually happen. But fundamentally, it's not up for necessarily for the consumer to figure it out for us and tell us. It's up for us to almost forget what we know about Web3 and go back to our original mindset of a Web2 user and think, how could this be better now? And build for that, as opposed to repeating kind of the same kind of exact, maybe incrementally evolved processes, and think way bigger picture and take more giant leaps and larger risks to abstract away all of the Web3 things that those who use it every day just take for granted as like need to be the standard, as opposed to need to be removed entirely. In the interim, at a minimum, when we build new technologies and we build new Web3 experiences, at a minimum, again, the best thing we can do is to remove as many steps that are unnecessary as possible, and simply and clearly define the steps you're about to take as a user and what you can expect in that step. So you're not sitting there for 5 minutes with bated breath, wondering if you just lost a couple $100 pressing a mint button, right? So remove any unnecessary steps and communicate about every step. That's the immediate thing that can be done to improve long term. We just need to abstract away all the Web3 things that really consumers are never going to want to deal with in mass. That's my opinion.
Love that, Brian.
I think you nailed. Yeah, you nailed that. I think,
and then I'll build after you go.
I think you really nailed that when you said it's really down to the builders, and I think it's a collaborative. It's really like focal point on your like UX UI guys, right? Because you have like those are the people that are, and not just like making a pretty website, but taking the back end of how Web3 works and what like wallets and tokens and what it looks like how it actually works, the parts, and then being able to dissect that and deliver that in a package from a UX UI experience, and then also communicating with your marketing team on what that front facing project or your platform looks like, to where, like you said, you really have to remove the Web3 out of it and just think what is the outcome that somebody wants that's using this platform. And then your UX UI guys need to be freaking really innovative in this space and figure out like, how do we disrupt this UX UI experience to where it's somebody can use it. I mean, like Phantom being able to download on your phone and integrate in, like that was a huge step for Solana. And I think that those like have to be taken even a step further, because just because you have it on your phone, nobody still knows how to use it. Like unless you're in the space, like they don't know how to set up a wallet, and they're like, what is this phrase that I need to save? Like what does this even mean? So like figuring out how to keep the security and keep like the whole purpose of Web3, but really adopt this UX UI mentality and communicate with their marketing team on how that front faces consumers is like super important. I think you nailed that on the removing the Web3, focal point of what we're doing here, and just like what do consumers want? How does it affect them?
Yeah, I love that. And I want the combo to continue, but I would be remiss as the host and president of ISA if I didn't say that we are experts in UI UX testing and experience and design. So if anybody's going in that direction, feel free to reach out to us before you spend a bunch of money so that you can test it and make sure that it's the way to go. Because you might think it's really fucking awesome and cool and says everything you want, but your consumers may not agree. Okay, I shall digress. Or I already did digress. Now I am going to pause and you're up.
Grifter has his hand up.
Hey, no, I was gonna say, like, as an artist that's utilizing the space to try to bring spans in from Web 2 to Web 3, one of the biggest challenges that that I faced personally when I first started here was the user interface and the design of a lot of the technology, um, and the complications of buying ETH, and then if people wanted to swap coins and all that stuff to go on Polygon or Solana. That was one of the major hurdles that I, and along with a lot of my friends, had with trying to onboard a lot of people from Web 2 into Web 3. And it got to the point where um, I just kind of said, let me just take a break from Web 2. My music will still be out there. Let's try to offer something else different in Web 3. And, the one of the biggest challenges coming from the creator space, especially in the music industry, is how do we get these people to come over here? And because they've just been so used to receiving music for essentially for free for the past, I don't know, let's say 75 years, with given radio and then iTunes diminishing each song to 99 cents, and then Spotify where it's only $10 a month. And so how do we offer something different in this space? So that goes along with different projects offering different utility, and just offering a different experience here in Web3 to try to onboard our people from Web 2. So that's definitely been a challenge. User interface, with wallets. I mean, Phantom Wallet's great. I use that quite often for Solana projects. But just overall in general, the minting sites and what have you, they've not been the best in my experience. Some have been great, but when I try to get people to mint, it's definitely been a challenge on a lot of artists' ends.
Yeah, the easier you can make it on the consumer, the more likely you are to have success. I mean, just simple. I know that I personally don't like to jump through a bunch of hoops to give a company money to receive a product, right? I'm like, I want to buy the thing. Please make it easy on me so I can just have it. Otherwise, I'll use my feet and go buy somewhere else. And writ large, the Web3, ecosystem needs to keep that in mind. And while we work to innovate against really difficult challenges, in the interim, simplify things as much as possible, and where you can't simplify things, make it extremely clear in communication what is about to happen, right? So, an example, not to.
I was just gonna call you out for an example, but let's see if it's the same.
Yeah, so won't overly shill on this, right? But the Bastard Baboon Mint.
Thank goodness, this is what's on my notebook.
When we know about our community a decent amount because we talk to them and we canvass them and we do things like ISA does, and we ask them questions and try to learn about our audience. And we know that a lot of people are in that project, mostly because they're excited about what the project is and not because they're Web3 enthusiasts. Like in most cases, we are their kind of first exposure to the Web3 space, right? So having that awareness, and given that we're building on an L2, specifically the Polygon blockchain, like the idea of trying to tell somebody, okay, go ahead, get this MetaMask wallet, which we had to educate some people about what a MetaMask wallet is and how to do that. And then explain to them how to get that wallet from the Ethereum mainnet to the Poly mainnet. We just put in the effort. So when you connected your wallet, it automatically forced it onto the Polygon mainnet. Right? Not all that complicated, certainly more development time. Our engineers had to work on that solution, but they weren't trying to, build a rocket ship to Pluto here. I mean, it was certainly a solvable problem with technical know-how, and it completely eliminated a step. And for us, a huge effort to need to educate people on not only how to get a MetaMask wallet, but then to get that wallet onto the Polygon chain. So it's just an example of ways that you can abstract out steps with effort and engineering prowess, right, to make it a little bit easier. Ultimately, what would be really, really cool in Web3 is if you just said, hey, come here, buy this JPEG with your Visa credit card, and magically a wallet is going to show up on your phone with the thing in it, and you'll just be prompted to create a password and a seed phrase. Like, that would be awesome. Still not the perfect solution, but definitely better than 99% of what we experience today. It's just putting that level of criticality into the thinking of what exists today in these technologies. What can we remove from the process, and how can we better communicate, right? So I don't know. I'm probably just rebeating the same drum.
No, I think that's like, I think that we're hitting on something key. And just to like riff off of that same experience, right, is also, and our conversation about like not getting too stuck on Web3, like as we're onboarding, right? So if you think about like the decision in cases to drop Matic, right, into those folks' wallets, like things like that, where like we were hearing people were like, no matter how many times we told them or whatever thing, like where it was, like, you know, Discord, Twitter, like everywhere, instructions, videos, FAQs, right? It comes down to it. And when it comes down to time to mint, and there's a little bit of a like rush, right? Because people want to get in. And then they're like, oh, wait, I forgot. What do I got to do? Right. And it was like this, you know, this is how it's going to work. Right. And you can skip that step, right? Because we've already taken care of that for you right now. And then I think there was even some more steps that were taken, but didn't know if you had anything kind of to share around that, Brett.
I mean, the actual Matic itself, the Matic faucet, is another example, which again, for a free mint, easy to do it, right? But rather than try to expect people who had never done this before to, now that they've got a MetaMask, try to use MoonPay or Transact or whatever to go buy some Matic and then probably get it on the Ethereum mainnet and then need to bridge it over and all that other nonsense. Not to mention the fact that their bank probably refused the transaction in the first place and they had to get their debit card reactivated. What we did is we said, get your MetaMask wallet and don't worry about anything else. On free mint day, there's just going to be Matic in your wallet. So what we were able to do is take all the wallets that were on the allow list, right? And we were able to identify if they had any Matic at all. We knew from a spectrum base what the low and the high end amount of Matic was going to be to mint that bastard baboon. And if you had no Matic in your wallet or not enough Matic, we just airdropped it to you. And it cost us about $60 USD to airdrop the Matic needed to the roughly 3,000 wallets that were on the allow list. Right. So, yeah, I had to come out of pocket $60, whatever. I gave, you know, it was only 2,727 baboons in the collection, right? 2727. And I airdropped $60 worth of Matic to roughly, 2,500 wallets. And those people had a great experience. And the reason that happened was not because I spent $60. That's not the issue. The reason it happened is because the entire team thought, how do we make this a great experience for somebody who's never minted before? That was the foundational question. And that foundational question drove every single design and marketing decision we made around that minting experience.
And if I can add, the reward, or for me, one of the rewards, is when you have someone that does not understand the space, loves a project, you spend like 10 hours just trying to help them download Discord, right? The first time that they go to like OpenSea and put in their wallet and they see their thing in the stuff, the level of joy is like addictive, right? They're like, oh my God, they still don't even maybe know what it is, but they can see it and it's theirs, right? And it's in there. Versus like a lot of us who have been doing this for a long time, like a lot of times, like once you get to that point, you're then in a community being like, thank fucking God. There was like 10 issues that sucked. Like 5 people got left out. You know what I mean? Like it's like a whole different experience. And here it was like, I think about people like Jin, right? Brent, that it was like she can't even still believe it's happened. And she's probably telling everybody on the street in some wrong way, but she's so damn happy.
Yeah, the minting experience it's super competitive to any unboxing day, right? Like Christmas or whatever gift wrapping experience you might have in your culture, your birthday, right? The minting experience and the reveal of the randomized artwork that you just got, it's truly joyful. But the argument I have is let's also try to make the actual experience of getting to that moment but as joyful as the actual moment itself as you can possibly get to, right? Obviously, getting a gift is never going to be, or unwrapping a gift is never going to be as delightful as finding out what that gift is. But if you can make tearing off the wrapping paper even 70% as enjoyable as the gift itself, like holy cow, man! Like you're delighting your audience, you're delighting your community, and that to me is just extremely critical thing for the builders to think about. Don't be lazy and just go do it this way because that's the way it's always been done in Web3. We know there's a lot of suffering out there, even for those who understand the space extremely well and exactly how to do all the steps to mint. Doesn't matter. Treat yourself well. Make it easier.
I assume there's lots of like commentary on this. So please feel free to jump in. I see some folks raising their hands and I'm bringing you on up. So you can jump in at any time. We still have, a good 15 minutes or so left and would love to hear what people think.
I was kind of interested in one of the big things that's going to make this experience a lot easier to me is just having a custodial wallet system. To me, that's like probably like the most straightforward solution for most of this front end UI UX. And I didn't know for sure. Like I know Ilhan has some cybersecurity background, but I mean, I guess my question is like a lot of people kind of just argue, oh, it's not decentralized, or I don't know. I think it was Soulport, which had wallets, and they had a security issue, and the wallets actually did get hacked. But I mean, to me it seems to be like the solution, but I don't know, does anybody have any experience or opinions about what that might look like for things like Polygon to start implementing it, or you know what I mean? Because I've only seen it on like Wax, and now there's Cupcake on Solana, which uses a cell phone, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, I don't know, has anybody else had any experience just going with the custodial system?
I
I don't have any.
think. Oh,
Go ahead.
let me know if you can hear me because for
Oh yeah,
some
I can hear
reason.
you. Go ahead,
Oh,
Ilham.
okay, good.
Yep.
So I think the custodial wallets would solve some issues for sure. Especially because generally everyone really is bad at security, but especially when you give someone the keys to something and you say, hey, this is all you. Most people are not really good at that at all. So I'm thinking it could solve a few things, but then you have to think about at the platform level or whoever's providing these services, right? Their security has to be top notch. And then also the naysayers will say, well, crypto's all about I guess having non-custodial wallets and such and such, so there's that argument, but I would say there's a security issue at play where you're giving someone their own seed phrase for sure.
As we think too, like, and I know we're in a different setting with the folks on the stage, but we're talking about education, onboarding, ease, and making things interesting. If I wasn't familiar with the space and somebody said we're going to put a custodial wallet on your phone, I would be like, this sounds like some kind of crazy FBI shit. Like, what are you talking about? Right. So even like in the way that like we speak and interact with each other, as we're working towards like onboarding the masses, like that to me sounds like something crazy scary, right? Like it's not. So I think that those things are important. I think we had a couple folks up on the stage come and join us. Did you want to jump in? Or maybe.
Oh, do you mean me?
Anyone.
Oh, okay.
Anyway. Oh, no, you were down at you were already up here, and then somehow you were down.
Yeah, I
and then you were
couldn't hear you
up.
for the
Yeah.
longest.
But you can feel free to like definitely to chime in. But there were some hands raised, and I thought folks came up, and I don't know if I'm losing my mind or what the hell's going on. But again, we got 15 minutes left, and there's been lots of good insights. I actually have like 3 pages of notes, and also thank you to all of you speakers, as you all have dropped some sound bite gems tonight that we will pull out of the show and make into a graphic and credit to you, and also send to you for your own usage. But tonight in particular, I feel like we have addressed, some very specific things as it relates to kind of the masses and some key points. So I love this. Keep going.
I was gonna say, like, I don't know if I feel like a lot of people won't care that it's a custodial wallet until they start like knowing, like, if we're looking for mass adoption, right? Like, um, if we're able to give them an easier way to get into the space, they're just gonna take it. And I think referring to earlier in the conversation,